thank a Black teacher today for folks who are listening. I'm just pausing to thank Black teachers everywhere doing the work, pouring into the youth. It's so important. When you were talking, it made me also think about my experiences as well, particularly when you were saying something to the effect of, I might not even appreciated it in its fullness at the time, but I'm thinking about that too. Hey, growing up, hey, I'm a product of Detroit Public Schools, and I often say, and talking to folks these days, having the majority of my teachers be Black from preschool all the way through was significant in terms of now thinking in retrospect, in terms of even at a level of imagining and recognizing what my level of possibility could be, that pouring in of affirmation. And I loved how you talked about, oh yeah, I wanted to go back and learn some stuff so I can like impress her because I wanted to hear more of that. There's also a skill in that. So you studying, you got more knowledge as you were doing that. And so that positive reinforcement had a good impact on you. And so, yeah, I'm just thinking back, the math teacher, the writing, English, reading, got into high school, like physics and things like that, social studies and all of that, just having the experience of being educated by Black teachers and just oh, as you said, it just reminds me. I just didn't fully appreciate it in the ways that I do now, but it was such a gift. It's so powerful. And I loved how you talked about the impact of that because what I'm getting from what you're saying is you were poured into, you were built up to the degree that, oh, yeah, you clearly knew that this experience you were having with this white teacher was wrong, but that wasn't enough to tear you down and derail you in the ways that, yes, unfortunately, like from very early ages, so many Black students can be derailed from that treatment. I'm listening to your story and it's, oh, I have a question about this. But the question was actually an accusation, right? And it's rooted in that person's sense of expectation. It's like, oh, I don't expect you to be able to write at this level, which says a lot more about them and their socialization and what they bought into than you as a person. But I love how you shared the power of being poured into so much to the degree where, oh yeah, you recognize what was going on, but that wasn't enough to stop you or derail you. It just speaks to the importance of a Black teacher. And you're a Black teacher yourself, you're a Black educator yourself. So thank you. But yeah, seriously, folks who are out there listening, thank a Black teacher today, thank a Black educator today. And if you are listening and you are a Black teacher educator, thank you for everything. Seriously, for everything that you are doing. Your work is so important. You are so important. So
Yeah.
all the things you said, just maybe you want to just pause for a minute and just say thank y'all
Yes.
because that is so significant. I
Yes.
just it just needed to be. I just felt it needed to be said. So thank you for also giving me the space to share that in the midst of you sharing your origin stories here. You've had those experiences, those early experiences. How do they influence your current work and activism in terms of your understanding of social justice issues? How do they influence how you show up today?
Influence, inform, yeah, all of
Mhm.
that. I say all of that because one of the things in thinking about where I am at this particular point in my professional journey and then the journey to just becoming a better human is I had teachers who challenged me in high school to why you gonna run away from the city? Come back to the city. To folks wanting to leave Detroit after they graduate college or what have you. And I took that charge really serious. Why? I had all these people who helped me, shoulders I'm standing on. I want to come back to my city. I want to bring back my skills, my talents, my intellect for the benefit of my city and my people.
That's right.
And so coming back to teach, right? Knew I was going to be a teacher from a young age, but coming back to teach and then passing that on to the students that I touched as well, that there's been investment in you. Think about coming back here to root yourself and continue that investment, right? Continue that cycle. And so it was important for me to help students to see beyond, to understand their city. Detroit is just a magical place. I love it. But to understand the history of
The
this
history.
city, to understand why things are the way that they are, where we can point back to, right? To learn the lessons of the past so we're not repeating those. Why be part of this brain drain, right? Let's not do that. And students who I know in my years as a Detroit public school teacher, 15 years, totally in the district, and thinking about the hundreds of students I've touched who come back to me, right? Who would come back to my classrooms over the year to show me what they have gone on to do, to be, "How, Miss Fakhoury, do you remember me?" And it's, "Yes, I remember you. I can never forget that face." And then for them to be so excited to tell me the things that they're doing and how they're touching folks, right? Changing lives, doing just really great and fantastic things on large scales and local scales, right? So that was an important understanding for me to leave Detroit Public Schools with and University of Michigan and to come back. Thinking about the legacy that I could leave, right? And thinking about what my teachers done for me. Then I began to think, how can I do more of this? I was seeing some things as I was working on my master's degree and other things. And there were some changes that were happening in the city, and my relatives were moving out to the suburban communities, and they were coming up against some ugly stuff with their
Mm,
children in these predominantly white communities. Who was
mm,
being one Black student in the whole class, no Black adults in the school whatsoever, and all kinds of things. And I began, oh, we got to change this. And I began to think, what could I do? And that's where my PhD in sociology come into play for me. Like I said, sociology was something I loved before I even knew what it was. It spoke to me. And to ultimately think about, how could I then train future teachers, right? To help them develop the skill sets and capacities to be these transformative adults who are committed to promoting equity and inclusion in their practice, in their classrooms, in their schools, in their communities, because that was what I felt like that could really, that's going to change some things and help them to understand history and how they are rooted in history and how there are things that we have learned that we need to unlearn in order to really advance equity and inclusion. And so I think about those young Black and brown children everywhere, and white children as well, who benefit from having not only teachers of color, right? Because the benefits for students who, we know what the benefits are for young and Black and brown students, for white s- children as well, we know what the benefits are. But for having teachers who are really just human centered and purpose driven and love children. And when I say that I was built up in such a way that one moment didn't tear me down, I want there to be teachers and children's lives along their journey that they would experience the same thing. How do you help grow and help individuals develop in such a way that they do take for granted the brilliance of every child that they're coming into contact with? That you
mm,
really do love children. Because if so, then you are going to, Frederick Douglass wrote about building up children, right? That it's better to build child up than to repair adults.
mm,
How are we at a place where we really are living into that about building children up? And so that is really part of what is at the root of the work that I do and why I'm called to do the work, because it's not then just about the race and ethnicity, right? It's about citizenship status, it's about ancestry, it's about heritage, it's about sexual identity and orientation, it is about gender identity and expression, it is about class, it's about religious affiliation. So if you really are, right, talking about loving children and wanting to build children up in such a way that they are so armored that whatever comes at them, it is not something that is going to knock them off their game, right? Or they understand how to go for the help or support that they need if they do face some kind of adversity, right? That they know what their resources are. And for me, it all makes sense. It all makes sense that we have to lean into education as a practice of freedom and what my role is into helping bringing that about so that we aren't really helping folks to see that everybody's liberation is bound up in the liberation of one another. That I want to be authentic. I want to be myself. I want to be free. I want to be accepted. I don't want to have to put on airs. I don't want to have to wear that mask that have right. So the way that I get free is that then I have to work on behalf of the freedom and liberation of other people. And for me, that education piece, day one from the family, but then when we get into these schools, that's another big deal. Can we have educators in place really that are loving our children, seeing their brilliance, helping them to be authentic, right? So that they can go make a mark in the world and live their purpose. And so for me, it all is connected.
It's all
Yeah.
connected. It's all
Yeah.
connected.